Chapter 102. Galimarathi. Adventurer Level 15. Dwarf, Calcuttan. Okay, do I gotta be the one to ask this? Rebus asked in a whiny tone. What the fuck are we supposed to do against ghosts? The Western Wasters had been suffering from success ever since we reported back to the Venator's Bureau. We hadn't skimped on the details, and the Bureau had even investigated and confirmed what they could. This gave them the impression that they should give us all of the strange jobs that other hunters couldn't quite figure out. Unfortunately, they seemed to have a backlog of weird missions and had been running us ragged ever since. Our entire winter had been spent in the countryside, solving mysteries like we're goddamn detectives or something. Every single quest thus far had been just normal shit causing weird shit to happen, hoaxes or an easily killed monster that the locals hadn't heard of before. We'd been so busy that we'd even leveled up a bit, and we'd finally been assigned a job that didn't require us to leave Talakam. We had been asked to investigate reports of a haunted manor on the outskirts of town. Mako and Rebus had argued against taking the job, but the bartender had quickly upped the ante to 1 gold apiece. That, combined with the fact that the job was to investigate and not to exterminate, quickly changed their minds. Sort of. There ain't no such thing, I replied. And even if there is, we just have to use stabs, slashes, or spells to get rid of them. And what if none of that works? Duh, we run. I don't like ethereal shit, Mako muttered. That's too damn bad, I replied. You took the job just like we did. I, for one, am excited about what we might discover, Ithrima added. First-hand accounts of spirits are rare. We might even be able to publish our experience. The reason that first-hand accounts are rare is because they don't fucking exist, I growled. Keep your damned heads on your shoulders. It's probably just bugs or something, Hino agreed. It's the season for the giant beetles to start looking for mates. Fuck, Rebus spat. That might be worse than ghosts. Hate bugs. While we were away, the Venator's Bureau had received several reports of strange sounds coming from the manor at odd hours. There had also been disappearances around the manor, but those had stopped. Of course, the previous owner of the manor had been a deranged noble who had tortured and killed several people, so the townspeople weren't exactly keen to peek their heads in to take a look. There it is, I sighed as the manor came into view. Let's get this over with. Can we just pop our heads in? Rebus asked. I really don't want to be the one to discover that ghosts are real. No, Ithrima and I said in unison for vastly different reasons. Fucking bitches, Rebus grumbled to himself. If I die, I'm gonna haunt the hells out of you. I'll take that risk, I growled. 'Cause ghosts aren't fucking real. Even from the outside, it was obvious that the manor was in a very dilapidated state. However, it was also apparent that it had been very impressive before it was abandoned. As we got closer, I noticed that some of the gold and silver trim had survived. That's not a good sign, Mako pointed at the trim. Even the fucking looters don't want nothing to do with this place. We paused in front of the manor and got in formation. I waited patiently for Rebus and Mako to finish preparing their gear, but it was soon clear they were stalling. Hino and I met eyes, and I sighed loudly. Fucking useless, I said, pushing past them. Come on, Hino, let the cluckers hang back so they don't piss themselves. I walked up to the front door, and just as I was about to turn the handle, a crash came from within the manor. Hino pulled me back a step, and I drew my bow to cover him. He slowly turned the handle, then flung the door open and ran inside. Ithrima and I followed close behind him, but Mako and Rebus had to run to catch up. The interior of the manor wasn't as dark as it should have been. The hole in the ceiling played a large part in this, but the candelabras lining the wall had been lit. We stepped further in, and I heard a scraping noise down one of the side corridors. Who goes there? I shouted. Is Camden? A voice said from the hall to our left. Who? Wait! Customers? An excited plopping noise that I recognized as bare feet running on stone flooring sounded from the hall. It was a very disarming sound, but I kept my bow raised. Suddenly, a massive bakobold appeared from around the corner. Customers, it said. Wait, weapons? Why weapons? Robbers? Holy shit, Rebus muttered from behind me. No way. We're not robbers, we're adventurers, I explained, as the bakobold hefted a pike 4 times my height. We were tasked with investigating the source of some odd sounds coming from this manor. Ah, makes sense, the Bakobold said. We's not opened yet, so customers would be weird. Robbers would be weird too, but you sure you's not robbers? What would there be to rob? Mako asked. Our store. We sell stuff. Or gonna do when we's opened. Wait, who's we? I asked. Us kobolds. Answer question, tiny one. Are you robbers or no? No. Oh, good, the Bakobold sighed in relief. Too many of you. Might have died. Good fight, though. Probably. Undoubtedly, Mako said, eyeing the creature up and down. So, kobolds are turning this abandoned manor into a store? Yeah, we is. I should probably get Lord. He likes talking to adventurers. You wait here, yes? Sure, I said, lowering my bow and shrugging. The Bakobold nodded and ran back down the hallway. We stood silently for a moment, digesting our discovery. Kobolds opening a store. In a dwarven town. Hey, Rebus said, breaking the silence after several moments. Do you think that these kobolds are the same ones that locked? The pattering of several pairs of feet interrupted him. I fought the instinct to raise my bow, and before long several kobolds appeared alongside the same Bakobold from earlier. One was wearing a crown made of fish skulls and various leaves. It took one look at us and jumped with excitement. You guys, it exclaimed. It's my friends, the Western Wasters. In all of my years as an adventurer, it never once occurred to me that I would one day recognize a kobold. It also never occurred to me that I would run into the one kobold that I knew by name within a supposedly haunted manor that was previously owned by a serial killer. Needless to say, I was shocked into silence. Most of my comrades felt the same, but Rebus was the type that could remain talkative even with his jaw removed. Ha! No fucking way, he said. Samith, is that you? Yeah. The kobold started bouncing. Why you guys here? You want to buy stuff? Buy stuff? Yeah. We making a store. You're making a store in this manor? I asked, recovering some of my sense. Yeps, Seameath beamed. Was gonna sell stuff to the dwarves direct like, no need to wait for caravan. How are you getting the stuff from your dungeon to this manor? It's a few hours away, isn't it? Hidden tunnel. Some elves helped Hinthry find it. Elves? Hinthry. My confused glance toward the other kobolds caught one of them waving at me in a bashful manner. It was the same manner in which a young girl with a crush would wave, which only served to deepen my confusion. Yeah, Hinthry and the elf were talking about mushrooms, and they finded the hidden tunnel from the dungeon to here, Seameath grinned. Now it only takes a few minutes to get to the the city. Working on that word. Wait, Mako interjected. Hold on. You mean to tell us that there's been a connection between the town and a dungeon that has housed both a master vampire and a lich? Oh! Town way better word than shittier city, Seameath replied, then paused and rubbed his chin. I guess you're right about tunnel. But you friends with the Lord, so that not bad, right? Well, yeah, but... The massive orc trailed off and looked at us for confirmation of his sanity. Rebus and Hino shrugged, but I was trying to decide which of my many questions to ask next. The disappearances were probably due to the vampires, and the kobolds probably wouldn't know anything about that. The noises were obviously the kobolds trying to convert the manor into a store. I finally thought of a question that I didn't have the answer to, but Ithrima beat me to it. What do you plan to sell? Our elven mage asked. Bunch of stuff. We's got all the stuffs that the caravan wanted, plus stuff that the caravan didn't wanted, and stuff that the elves traded. Seameath paused and turned to one of the other kobolds. What did the elves traded? The party of adventurers from the elvish lands exchanged coinage, and their caravans have been exchanging cloth, fur, and preserved foodstuffs, Lord, the other kobold explained. I'm afraid we cannot exchange the foodstuffs, though. Why's not? They are quite delicious. So? We are eating them far too quickly to sell them, Lord. Ah, yeah, okay, Seameath turned back to us. We also got weapons and handmade goods. Baskets, bracelets, things like that. By those above, you lot are gonna open a general store in a haunted manor, Rebus sighed. What's haunted means? That word typically refers to a location that is host to the undead, Lord, the other kobold answered. Undead? Samith cocked his head. Like the Lord? So, our home is haunted? Well, The other kobold trailed off, appearing to have an existential crisis for a moment. Yes, Lord. I suppose our dungeon is technically haunted. There was the suckers, too. They were undead, right? Yes, Lord. If it helps, haunted usually means ghosts, Rebus explained. The kobolds, who had been giving each other looks of discomfort, turned to stare at Rebus in unison with their heads cocked. It happened precisely enough that it could have been mistaken for a military maneuver. Then the big kobold sighed and shook his head. Ghosts not real, tiny one, it said. Even hatchlings know that. Don't be mean, Camden, Simeth scolded. He just telling's joke that we don't get. He knows that ghosts not real. Right, Rebus? You know ghosts not real, right? Tells him you know that ghosts not real. Rebus stared at the kobolds and then glanced at us. When his eyes met mine, I grinned wider than I'd ever grinned in my life. His glance turned into a glare. I do not wish to discuss this matter any further, he grumbled. But you know they aren't. No further, Simith. Rebus friend, peoples die all the time, everywhere. Simith spread his hands. If ghosts was real, they would be all over the place. There would be more of them than us, yes? Rebus treated Simith to a cold stare and remained silent. Mako shifted uncomfortably and rubbed the back of his neck. I, to my credit, did my best not to laugh uncontrollably. We should set Rebus's childish worldview aside for a moment, Ithrima said with a mean chuckle. Have you obtained the proper trade permits to operate a store, Simith? We got the paper thingy from the caravan, Simith said. They said it was super important. Is that what you means? Ithrima and I shared a nervous glance. Maybe, she said. Would it be possible for me to see it? Yeah. Camden, you fast! Simith poked the extra-large kobold. Go get paper thingy, pleases. Yes, Lord, the kobold said with a bow. Kobolds are, on average, slightly larger than a well-built orc. Camden, however, was even bigger than Mako, yet the speed at which he disappeared down the corridor was enough to set me on edge. I wasn't the only one. The five of us stared, stunned, at where the kobold had been only a moment before. It took a few moments for the shock to wear off. So, Lord? Hino asked. Yeah? Simith asked in turn. Oh no, I mean, what does it mean? What does what mean? What does Lord mean? Oh, it means little lord, Simith shrugged nonchalantly. The Lord has gone to teach in the unified chiefdoms. The tallest chief invited him to, and he really wanted to, so he put me in charge of kobold developmentals and care. When will he be back? I asked. I don't know, Simith sighed sadly. He has been gone all winter. His paper said that he might be back to checks on us after summer, though. I'm sorry to hear that. I briefly heard the pattering of feet, but before I could recognize the sound, Camden was already standing beside Simith, holding a scroll. Simith thanked the kobold, took the scroll and offered it to Ithrima. She immediately unfurled it and began to read. A moment later she let out a sigh. This is what I was afraid of, she said. This document grants you the privilege of trading with an intermediary. So, is not a trade permit? It is, just not the type you need. There's different kinds of trade permits. Both shock and confusion became apparent on the kobold's face. Oh my, yes. Yours allows you to sell in bulk to any merchant registered with the town. The permit that you require, however, would allow you to set up an area to house and sell goods. There are also permits for temporary vendors, like street stalls or a traveling caravan, as well as permits for importing and exporting goods from outside of the Empire of Calcuti. I think they may need that last one as well, I added. I don't think so, Ithrima shook her head. Their residential address lies outside of the town borders, so as long as they're accepting the imported goods there and transporting them here via the tunnel, they shouldn't require an import permit. So, can we get the permit thingy? Simith cocked his head. Maybe. If I recall correctly, every type of trade permit requires an endorsement. The Venators Bureau endorsed this one, so they might be able to endorse the type of permit that you need too. But there are two potential issues that I can see. What are they? I asked. The first would be the ownership of this manor. If the rumors surrounding the building are correct, it's most likely owned by the Talicum municipality. The town will likely have been trying to offload this property for quite a while, so if we suck up to the proper people, we'll be able to buy it for dirt cheap. However, if someone else owns it, we'll have to hunt them down and try to convince them to sell it. We'll have to take care, otherwise they'll try to fleece us. I see. And the second potential issue? Well, the trade permits require signatures from all parties involved. It looks like Larry signed this one, so I'm guessing the formalities were taken care of in the dungeon. To get the proper permit to open a store, though, we're going to need to jump through some bureaucratic hoops. Which means we have to do this in the Capitol building, I sighed. Yes, Ithrima nodded. And we're going to have to take Seameath with us. Chapter 103. Jamuk Marathi. Adventurer level NA. Dwarf, Calcutan. Cinti, where are the quarry quotes? I asked my assistant. My elf assistant's long blonde hair fluttered as she turned. Many a visitor had complimented me for my taste in women, assuming that I had hired Cinti for her looks. The thing is, I wasn't the one who hired her. I just didn't fire her back when I took office. A choice I almost regretted as she gave me a blank stare. Quarry quotes? She asked. Oh! Right. The quotes for the stone needed to repair the thoroughfare. Just a second. To call Cinti's organization style chaotic would be an understatement. I sighed as she lifted a pile of fictional books to leaf through the files beneath them. Beneath the files were various office supplies that saw little use, likely due to the fact that they were hidden from view. I couldn't complain much, though. Things may be chaotic, but it somehow works, and at a glance things appear fairly tidy. I wondered for a moment if she had been cursed by one of the fair folk. Something along the lines of, you will never know organization again, but you can still keep things pretty clean. Probably not, that's awfully specific for a curse. Here they are, Mr. Mayor. I winced at the nickname as she handed me a few folders. It wasn't that it sounded tacky. It wasn't that it was alliterative. It wasn't even that the way she said it made it sound borderline flirtatious. No, there was a very specific reason the nickname bothered me, one that applied only to Cinti. My name is neither Mr. nor Mayor, Cinti, I sighed. I know that, sir. It's been 2 years and you've heard it said hundreds of times. That's why I totally know it. My lord, do we need to get a nice big portrait of me with a nameplate in extra large font and hang it up where you can see it every day? I asked, almost serious. I said I remember your name. But that's actually a really good idea. Her slightly purple eyes turned toward the walls. We could get rid of the rickety old shelves that nobody uses and hang it up right over there. So you did forget my name? Well, no, all right, fine. Yes, I'm sorry, she bowed apologetically. I'm just really bad with names. I've been your boss and the mayor of this town for 2 years, I sighed. Really bad doesn't even begin to cover it. Abysmal? Atrocious? Even those words don't quite do it justice. I know, she bowed again. I'm super sorry, sir. I'll work harder to remember your name. Bah, I flicked my wrist dismissively. Don't bother. Everyone else in town has it down. It's no big... Wait, you voted for me without knowing my name? Cinti, in the midst of another bow, looked up at me with abject terror in her eyes. It was the kind of look one gives someone who has stumbled upon a terrible secret. My slightly bemused expression shifted to one of shock. Well, you see, she mumbled. Cinti, please tell me that you vote. Yes, sir. I vote, sir. Now do it without lying. I can't, sir. Gods help me. I squeezed the bridge of my nose. The mayor's assistant doesn't vote? What nonsense is this? Loads of people don't vote, sir, she said softly. It isn't as if there's anyone but you to vote for, either. The fact that I run unopposed is not the point, Cinti. The point is that voting is more than a right, it's a civic duty. But we don't get to vote for our lords or the emperor, so what's the point? Don't give me that Hanarsh shit. The fact of the matter is that I have a lot more power over this town than Lord Yav or Emperor Jack does. Huh? Don't hum me. They can order me to give orders, but do you think they would be willing to come here to ensure that I gave those orders? They probably wouldn't even bother to pay to send a messenger, so I'd be able to just burn the orders and pretend I never received them. They're so far removed from our day-to-day lives that they probably wouldn't even notice until our next round of elections. Really? Yes. Local politics are usually far more important to the average citizen than regional or national politics. If you're not paying attention to who is running, then you're likely to elect someone who's incompetent. Or worse, someone who's competent but has malicious intentions. It's dumb, Cinti. But I didn't vote for anybody, so I didn't elect anybody. Yeah, that's just putting the responsibility into someone else's hands. You don't know how many people out there are going to make a good or bad choice, and by choosing to not make your voice heard, you're allowing other voices to trample your own. That's even dumber than not paying attention to who you're voting for. Fine, Cinti said with a sigh as she took her seat. I'll vote in the next election, even if you run unopposed again. Good, I nodded and turned toward my office door. Sorry for calling you dumb. I'll be in the office if you need me. Where else would you be? Good point, I chuckled as I entered my office. I closed the door behind me and took a seat at my desk. Talocom's mayoral office was much more modest than my previous office had been, but I found it to be more comfortable, cozy even. It was definitely a little heavy on the brown, though. My desk, the walls, and even the floor were made of the same type of stained wood. The rest of the building was stone, so entering my office for the first time was usually a little jarring. That was likely by design, though, and I had used it as a tactic in various negotiations. With a deep breath in and out, I began to review the quotes. The road builders had wanted to purchase stone from a specific quarry, but the quarry in question was fairly distant from the town, and the cost had looked high to me. It didn't take long to determine that they were overcharging by a wide margin. Fucking amateurs, I chuckled. The road builders had likely been offered a kickback, and this was probably their first time participating in such a scheme. It's a pretty simple scam, too. The quarry overcharges the city, and the builders get a cut of the extra profit. Expert grafters would have threatened to walk or offered me a bribe instead of allowing me the opportunity to look at extra offers. Such schemes are pretty common in the Empire of Calcutti, especially in municipalities that have inexperienced leaders. It's a fair enough practice, so long as it doesn't toe the line of extortion or actual fraud. It would be best if these builders refrained from attempting this in the future, though. I pored over the documents and found the best deal. A little extra stone than what was needed for less than a third of the original quote. I filled out the proper requisition forms and stamped them. The next step would be to subtly admonish the road builders for their part trying to scam the town. The trick to such admonishment is to heavily imply that you are aware of the scheme, and make them feel as if you are doing them a favor by not pressing the issue. It's a classic tactic that can instill loyalty, and sometimes it can even scare people into staying legitimate. It's not a guarantee, but even good people make mistakes. It's best to let them learn from their mistakes without anyone being harmed. Of course, that could just be a little bit of naivety talking. Mr. Mayor, you have some visitors? Cinti shouted. Do they have an appointment? I shouted back absent-mindedly. Nope. They were sent by the bartender at the Venator's Bureau. Once you let me send them in, you'll see why. Cinti's ominous chuckle ignited my curiosity, but it's not good practice to allow walk-in visits from just anybody. Setting that kind of precedent can easily snowball into random people interrupting important tasks throughout the day, or worse, a line of visitors. On the other hand, the bartender in question is Snithin Olmaxi, who is actually the regional director of the Venator's Bureau. His love of micromanagement and serving alcohol aside, he's a pretty shrewd orc. He probably wouldn't send someone my way unless he felt that it was necessary. Fine, send them in, I shouted, then sighed. A moment later, my door opened and 3 dwarves entered my office. My initial impression was that they were fairly normal adventurers, but the appearance of the first dwarf made me hesitate for a moment. I couldn't quite put my finger on why, though. Hey, hold on a minute, the dwarf said. Jamuk? Yes. Wait. I studied him a bit more, then laughed. Galley? Little Galley? What in the hells are you doing here? My younger brother asked. I thought you were working for the Emperor or something. Or something, I sighed and shook my head. I wasn't working directly for the Emperor. I was working for the Imperial Office of Taxation. Oh, right. So how did you go from that to being a mayor? I was sent here to conduct an audit. Turns out the previous mayor was embezzling funds like most mayors do. Unlike the other mayors, though, he was terrible at covering his tracks, and I had to turn him in. Nobody else wanted to be mayor, so I felt that it was my civic duty to take on the responsibility, I explained with an exaggerated air of nobility. Sure, Gally laughed. So which was it, the power or the money? Definitely the money, I gestured toward the stack of papers on my desk. I could do without the power, but this job pays a lot better than being an auditor. Did my ears deceive me, or did he call you Little Gally? The dwarf on the left said with an impish grin. He can call me that, Rebus, Gally replied. It's his right as my blood and elder. If you call me that, though, you'll be found in a ditch not far from where you made that terribly fatal mistake. Galilee not little, a voice from behind my brother said. He bigger than me, and I not little. I raised an eyebrow and cocked my head at Gally. He suddenly seemed to remember the reason for his visit and gave me a wide grin. It was a grin that I hadn't seen for a long time. A very, very long time. As a matter of fact, the last time I had seen that particular expression on my brother's face, he had hidden a sting crab in my underwear. The swelling had prevented me from defecating for 3 days. All right, let's make some room, he called over his shoulder. Mako, Ithrima, you wait outside. I planned on it, a rumbling voice said from outside my office. Fucking tiny dwarf buildings. Gally took a step closer to my desk, and I barely noticed his dwarven friends moving to either side of my office. Instead, my attention was directed onto what my brother's movement had just revealed. A small, reptilian creature nervously stepped forward, holding a crown made of various detritus in his hands like a beggar. Jamuk Marathi, mayor of Talokam and the surrounding municipality, I present to you Lord Seemith, acting regent of the Talokam dungeon. Gally bowed with an exaggerated and likely sarcastic gravitas. Oh, how do you do? Was the reply I managed. Do good, little worried about being away from stuffs, the reptile replied. You? I'm good as well. Somewhat confused about the nature of this meeting, though. Seemith needs a trade permit, Gally interjected. Well, another one. He already has an intermediary permit, but we're looking to get him and his kobolds the rights to open a store in the old abandoned manor on the edge of town. Kobolds? Trade permit? Wait, the Talokam dungeon. I trailed off as several key pieces of information clicked into place. Snithin, the kinfucker that he is, told me that an elderly and powerful mage had helped clear the dungeon of vampires and wanted to set up there to prevent any more monster nests from forming. I had pre-filled an intermediary trade permit so that the mage could barter for supplies with our passing caravans, and entrusted the regional director to get the permit signed by the mage. Not once during the entire process, including when he returned the signed receipt, did he mention kobolds. So who is this Lord Visimiro, then? I asked with an annoyed tone. I take it that he isn't just some run-of-the-mill elderly mage. You haven't met him? Gally asked, then laughed. Larry Visimiro is the lich who helped us clear the vampires out of the dungeon. Seemith here is his second in command. My little brother noticed my demeanor change at the word lich and held up his hands in a disarming manner. Larry didn't become a lich by choice. His dad turned him into one, he explained. He's a good sort. I'll vouch for that. Before his dad turned him into a lich, My little brother vouching for him did little to assuage my fears, but listening to him ramble on about Lord Visimiro's life story gave me the chance to think it through. The lich had been in the dungeon for quite some time now, probably since the dungeon went inactive and stopped spitting out monsters. As such, one could infer that the lich is responsible for the dungeon's inactivity. That, combined with the fact that it hadn't opted to lay waste to our town, means Gally is probably correct in his judgment of the lich's character. Snithin is an even better judge of character, and he wouldn't help something that would harm the town or its people. And having a dickhead for a dad doesn't make you a bad guy, Gally finished his explanation. I don't know about that, I chuckled. We didn't exactly turn out to be shining examples of morality. Sure we did. I hunt monsters and keep people safe, and you're a goddamned mayor. We're a far sight from being bandits like our PA. That probably has more to do with our mother than our father. Speaking of monsters, though, I can't grant a trade permit to one. It's illegal. Me not a monster, Seameath said. Me has thinks and words. Plenty of monsters are capable of thought and speech, I argued. My hands are tied on the mat. No, he's right, actually, the dwarf to my right interrupted. Kobolds are not technically monsters. They aren't even classified in any officially recognized imperial bestiaries. Hino speaks true, Rebus added. It may be because hunting them isn't worth it, or it could be because they tend to stick to their own affairs. Either way, the law don't consider them monsters. I leaned back in my chair and studied the group standing before me. Allowing a kobold to set up shop in town could damage my reputation as mayor, but that would only matter if someone actually ran against me. On the other hand, it could be quirky enough to raise some extra tourism, especially if we advertised it a bit. What kind of store? I asked. A general store, wide variety of goods, Gally answered. Weapons? Yes. Food? Yes. What about medicine? Probably. Shit, that's a lot of paperwork, I sighed. What about narcotics? Gally turned to look at the kobold, who seemed to be following the conversation enough to be confused. What that? It asked. A narcotic is a substance that affects one's mood or behavior. It can be eaten, drank, smoked, injected, or even snorted. So, food? No. Food can make you feel good, but narcotics usually make you feel better than good. I suppose the best way to describe it would be that it makes you feel like you're not your usual self. Oh, Wells, we grow mushrooms. Some of them make stuff weird. The others go in the soup. Well, you can sell the ones that go in the soup, I sighed. The ones that make things weird cannot be sold or traded. You can grow them, you can have them, and you can use them yourself. But you cannot trade them within the Empire of Calcuti. This includes bartering or adding them as an incentive to trade. Gotcha. No giving nobody the weird-making mushrooms. Good. Moving on. Since you will be operating your store within the municipality, you will also have to keep detailed records of your transactions for taxation purposes. You will also need to set aside a portion of your profits to pay the aforementioned taxes. We can hire somebody to do that for you, Gally said to the kobold, then turned back to me. I assume this means you're willing to grant the permit? I can't think of a reason not to, I shrugged. However, there is a condition. You will need to purchase and renovate the manor. I'm tired of that damned eyesore and the rumors surrounding it. Okay, how much? 80 and 10. Hino and Rebus drew in a sharp breath. My brother froze for a moment, then rubbed the back of his neck. 80 silver and 10 copper? He asked timidly. No, I chuckled. 80 gold and 10 silver. The manor itself is mostly worthless, but it still has most of its precious metal trim, and the land it rests on would make one hell of a field. The only reason we haven't scrapped the manor and marketed the property as farmland is because I would need permission from Lord Yav, and he would charge a special tax for the destruction of a building commissioned by nobility. I don't think we can afford that, Gally said. You're God's damned right we can't, the unnamed dwarf replied. We've got maybe 15 gold total, and that's after an entire winter of hunting. I got 12 golds from the elves, the kobold added. From the elves? I asked. Yes. They comes from different place. They wanted to fight us in the dungeon, but we didn't want to fight, so they traded with us instead. Sold a bunch of stuffs. Oh. The kobold paused and rubbed the back of its neck. What is it? Well, we didn't knows about the mush. Stop talking, I held up a hand. As far as I'm concerned, if the transactions in question took place in the dungeon, it is no business of mine. However, if you tell me of your own volition that you've sold narcotics, I am duty-bound to report you to the proper authorities. Oh, okays. Do you know where the coins come from? South of here's what they said. Likely Kivinor, then. I sighed and leaned back. Kivinor coins have more precious metal content than ours do, but only by a third or so. We don't have banks big enough to offer mortgages around here, so I guess the municipality will have to back the loan. You're giving Seameath a mortgage? Gally asked with a laugh. Oh no, absolutely not, I grinned. I could never in a million years justify giving a loan to a kobold without a credit history. Then, what are you talking about mortgages for? You went through all the trouble of bringing Lord Samith here to my office, little galley. My grin widened. I assume you want to see this venture succeed. Sure, but what? Galley was interrupted by the Rebus's hysterical laughter. His confused expression turned from me to Rebus, then back to me. Then a metaphorical dawn shone upon his features. Wait. Of course, some might see me giving my little brother a loan as a conflict of interest, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. Now hold on. Oh, I see, the kobold interrupted. You give Galley the mortgage and Galley buys the manor, then I pays him back with the profitses. Then the kobolds owns the manor, and we can has our shitty store. Sorry, city store? Exactly, I beamed. Galley looked back and forth between my malicious grin and the excited kobold. It had been a long, long time since I had been able to prank my brother, and I was relishing the moment. It was almost adequate as revenge for the sting crab. The prank also served to ensure that my brother wasn't just pulling my leg. If this is a serious venture, then Galley's name being on the mortgage won't matter at all. If Galley is just messing with me, though... Fuck! My little brother muttered under his breath.